Sniper.
Oh, sniper. I use P92.
What?
Throwing smoke!
Bruh.
Play more set.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Tom, also known as CalzoneOP. In today's video, we're going to be showing you the best settings for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. This game is absolutely phenomenal. I've been addicted to it ever since it came out. Shout out to Gilly for telling me to buy it. It's literally phenomenal. If you haven't bought it, go buy it. Get it from GameSplanet. It's 12% off. Anyway, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so we're going to be going to options, and we're going to start off on keyboard and mouse. So as long as you guys have mouse acceleration on 0, you'll pretty much be okay. I use 400 DPI and 7.78 mouse sensitivity. I think that's the best. Keep this at relative, and basically just keep everything on the mouse the exact same. As far as movement goes, this comes down to personal preference as well as the mouse. It's really the same thing. But as far as the movement goes, I prefer the crouch behavior and the prone behavior to be on hold as opposed to toggle. I think it's just a lot easier and a lot more fluid. If you're used to, let's say, Fortnite and whatnot like that, you may want to do the toggle instead of hold because that's kind of how Fortnite works, but that's completely up to you. Once again, it's personal preference. As far as the weapon and equipment, if you guys are on keyboard and mouse, I highly recommend that you guys change the switch weapon minimum delay. It's, I think, default at 100. I find that when it's at 67, it is absolutely perfect. So if you were to take your mouse and scroll, and you were to accidentally scroll twice instead of one time, it won't do it again and switch you back to the same weapon that you were on before. Instead, it'll switch to the weapon next, which is exactly what you want. So that's what I use for that. As far as everything else, I just leave that alone. Weapon mount exit delay, I also put to 0. I believe it is at 100 on default. Put that bad boy to 0 because you do not want to have to hold down when mounting, and just no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Keep this at 0. As far as aim down sight behavior, this should be at hold up by default, but in case it isn't, make sure it's on hold. That is 100% recommended. Forget your personal preference, put it on hold. Trust. As far as this goes, the only thing that I adjusted for myself is the weapon mount. I put this being able to use Z. I think Z is a really good button in order to press, but that's completely up to you guys on what you guys want to do for here. As far as kill streaks, vehicles, stuff like that, overlays, shortcuts, menu navigation, I didn't mess with any of that stuff, so if you guys feel like you want to go through that, by all means. As far as this goes, we're going to go into the general tab, and if we are on mouse and keyboard, we're going to do it like this. If you're on controller, you're going to click this bad boy right there. As far as that goes, the field of view, I believe it defaults at 70. I prefer it at about 90. Once you go past 90, it starts to get a little too stretched, starts to look a little too fake. But for me, I think 90 is that perfect in between. And again, it's personal preference. So feel free to play around with it and see which one you guys like best. All right. As far as this goes, brightness is going to change monitor to monitor. I keep mine on 50. It looks fantastic. Everything else I kept on default. This thing right here, frames per second, it's good to check, but after a while, once you have a baseline, you have an idea of what's going on, you can disable that. All right, as far as graphics goes, I use a GTX 1080, so mine may be a little bit different than yours, but as far as this goes, with a GTX 1080 and a 2700X Ryzen 7, I am able to run these settings perfectly. When I stream, it's a little bit different, but we're not talking about streaming, we're just talking about playing. As far as this goes, I have a 144 Hz monitor, so I'm going to be putting this at 144 Hz. If I was running a 240 Hz monitor or a 60, I'd be putting it to the adjust right there. As far as that goes, I'm going to keep it at 144. Render resolution, I keep this at 100. I was recommended to put it at 80. I tried it. It looks blurry. Don't do it. Put it at 100. Trust. Okay, now that we're done with that. VSync, make sure VSync is off. You never want VSync on. What's going to happen is it's going to introduce much more delay than you want. Do not use it. Take VSync off. Never use it ever. Okay, everything else should be on the default settings right over here. The one thing that you can change is the custom frame rate limit. I keep mine at 145 because you don't want it to get much higher. Again, you can you can introduce delay and input lag, and you don't want that, so we're going to leave it the way it is at 145. You do not want it on unlimited. Trust, just do it. And video highlights, that's completely up to you if you use highlights. I do, so I put it on enabled. Our sRGB, that's just default, that's fine. Now, as far as this goes, this is where the bread and butter of the game comes out to. I've messed with a bunch of settings, and I find that these are the best. But as far as this goes, let's go get into it. The texture resolution, I like to keep this on high. I like to keep anything where it's going to be a person or anything that's moving that I need to shoot, obviously, people. So as far as that goes, you want to keep it on high. What my whole philosophy of this whole thing is that I want to keep a contrast between my background, what I'm not shooting, and the people, which I will be shooting. In-game, of course. So as far as that goes, we're going to be putting the texture on high. That'll be the enemies, that'll be your gun, that'll be like basically the pretty things that you really want to look at. So we're going to keep those on high. Everything else, for the most part, I want to keep on low or normal. So texture, filter, I can't say that word, so we're just going to go with low. Particle quality, it's kind of hit and miss, but as far as that goes, I keep it at low. Because let's say there's a smoke grenade going on or something like that. Or not a smoke grenade, I'm sorry, a stun grenade. And, you know, you see the particles, or a grenade, and you see the particles of that. I'd prefer to have a contrast between being able to see the high textured enemy and the low textured particle. So what that's going to do is it's going to create a contrast, and I'm going to be able to see the person better. The whole point of it is to be able to see the person and take them out and win the game, right? All right. Bullet impact, I think it is extremely silly if you were to disable this. If you were to disable this, you wouldn't even know if somebody shot through the door. Keep it on enabled, trust. Desolation, again, I want to keep the contrast between the person and the environment at a all-time high. So what I want to do is I want to keep the environment as low as possible and the people as high as possible. This is for a performance aspect and a competitive aspect. If you want the game to look amazing and real and all that stuff, just put everything on high. Why are you at this video? If you want a performance-oriented setup as well as a competitive one, this is the best one that I have found so far. A shadow map resolution, you definitely want shadows, so we're going to keep that on normal. We don't need it super, super high, because that, first off, is going to lag GPUs that are not that great, as well as introduce more detail than we actually need. Again, low environment, high texture to enemies. That's what we want. We want to keep that consistency. Cache spot shadows, we're going to enable. Same with the sun shadows, because we're going to want to see the shadows. So let's say there's a spot shadow or sun shadow, and that shadow will be emitted off of a person. We want to see that. We want to know that there's going to be somebody around that corner. It's just going to give you a slight advantage. As far as that goes, particle lighting, once again, we want to keep that on normal. Ray tracing, if you have an RTX GPU, those are the new series, so the 20 series, the NVIDIA 20 series, you can enable this. I personally do not have one. I have no experience with this. So if you do have it, you can test it, try it. But if you do not have a 20 series, do not put it on. It's not going to do anything. Ambient occlusion, I keep it on both. I've been testing it here and there. I haven't found too much of a difference, but if it's a problem for you, you can always turn it off. But I keep it on, so we'll just run with that for the consistency. Screen space reflection, I keep that disabled. Anti-aliasing, I keep that on SMAA2 or T2X, excuse me. Depth of field, I keep that on enabled. You can kind of mess around with it, but as far as that goes, I find it pretty cool. If you want to keep it consistent with the way we're doing it, I highly suggest having it enabled. It's going to make everything a lot more smooth. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. I'm supposed to be making videos and I'm sneezing. Sorry about that, guys. Filmic strength, as far as this goes, I keep this on 1. I think it's the easiest way to show this right here. You don't want it to look like this. I would rather have it looking like this, so I keep it on 1. These are the biggest things that you must do right now. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you want. I don't care what you're doing right now. Go to this setting right now. World motion blur and weapon motion blur. Disable that right now. Just stop what you're doing. I'll give you a second. Disable it? Alright, great. Thanks. Film grain, just trust me on that. Trust me on that. Film grain, put that to 0 because, I mean, come on. Look at that versus that. This is way better. You don't want to see this. Again, we want to keep it low environment, high texture so we can see other people. We don't care about the environment looking like this in Filmic. We don't need that. It's just useless. As far as this goes, now we're going to be going into the audio. So from what has been tested on Reddit and Twitter, and everybody's been saying, boost high is the way to go if you're rocking a headset. If you have a home theater or something like that, by all means, you can go with it. But again, we're going for a performance/competitive orientation on this. So you want to be on either boost or boost high. That's what they're saying are the best. As far as this goes, I use a master volume that's a little bit lower because I stream, but you can kind of mess around with the volume as needed. That's going to be based off your headset and all that good stuff. Hit marker sound, I keep that on default, and everything else around here is pretty much on default. You can adjust these as you want with the push to talk or open mic. so on and so forth. I tend to actually disable this a lot because half the time all the lobbies are toxic. All right, here we go. If you're on controller, I'll be completely honest, I have no idea what you're really supposed to be doing. I used to keep it on my ass. When I did play Call of Duty, though, I was on tactical. I think that was the best. I don't know what the meta is nowadays, but as far as that goes, I was always on tactical and at 3 or 2. So do with that as you wish. All right. As far as that goes, those are your best settings that you're going to be getting on Call of Duty Modern Warfare in 2019 in the way that the meta is right now. If they include or change anything after this, I'll create a video on that, showing the best settings and so on and so forth. If this video helped you whatsoever, make sure to like the video, tell me how I did in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to this wonderful, wonderful channel. We're going to be pumping out a hell of a lot more Call of Duty content and tips and tricks and how-tos. It's going to be very, very helpful, very informative, and very, very fun. So make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. And until next time, your boy, Calzone, is out. Peace. So strong.